a big deal.
Well, I think one of the keys to especially a lifelong career as an artist is never losing that childlike wonder of creation.
Oh, totally, totally. I agree with you 100%. As a matter of fact, I was thinking about that last night. I had this terrifying dream. I don't know if it was terrifying, but it terrified me. But in the dream, I was told that I was going to die, and I was taken by my mother to this town where she said, "This is where everybody who's about to die comes." And my mother's still very much alive. I don't know why she was giving me a tour of this town. And as we walked around this town, someone handed me a record album, and in the dream, I knew the record, and I kept thinking it was it was Mance Lipscomb, because that's somebody I listened to a lot, but I wasn't really sure because I couldn't quite make out the cover, even though I held it in my own hand. And my mother's still leading me around the town, and at one point we come across my dad, who's been gone since 1995, and he was standing on a street corner playing a 6-string banjo. He didn't play an instrument, but he's playing this, and he's playing one of the songs from this record. And I got really upset, both because I was getting to see my dad, which was exciting for me, but also I wanted to hear the record for some reason. I said to my mother, I want to go home so I can listen to this song on this record. She said, well, you can't go home now. And I got really upset. I got so upset, as a matter of fact, that it woke me up. And
it's jarring.
It was jarring. And just thinking about, and I was actually still half asleep, and I found myself pawing through my records because I wanted to hear this record, and I didn't really understand which record it was. I did put on a record, but
do you write your dreams down?
Sometimes I do. Sometimes part of this whole process is I've developed over the last 5 years. I've developed night terrors, and so I have really vivid and really, really horrible dreams. I was writing them down for a little while, but after a while it got to be too much. Kind of, I didn't want to. I didn't want them to get any more traction than they already had, so I stopped. Then occasionally when I have one like this one, I did write this one down because both my parents were in it. I thought that was notable. And when something really, really odd like that happens, I write it down.
My girlfriend, after your Bristol show, she said that your lyrics and your stage presence, the characters, reminded her a lot of Raymond Carver's characters. And she was wondering if he was an influence on you, and do you see any of those similarities?
Well, that's super high praise for me. I'm a huge Raymond Carver fan. I've read every word he wrote. And he's a big influence on me. Him and Paul Bowles, for example. Especially Raymond Carver, the thing I love about his work is that he wrote about, his on the surface levels of his stories. He's not, if you just read the story as a story, there's not really much to it. Okay, a kid goes fishing with another kid. The end. There's not much going on there, but there's so much going on there because what he's talking about is this is the actual thing that actual life is made out of. These are the actual things that are actually happening to us. This is the thing that you'll remember for the rest of your life, even though it looks very mundane. It's not at all. And he was a brilliant author for just creating this world of terrifying normality. You know? I love his work.
Where you can feel claustrophobic in a wide open space.
Absolutely, absolutely. He can make, and I forgot what story is, and there's a scene in a kitchen, and in the coldest, most barren kitchen, that I couldn't imagine having to be in this room, because it's terrifying and there's nowhere to hide, I love his work.
What is it about that normalcy and those underdog characters that appeals to you?
I don't know exactly. I wonder if it's history because, I was
Is it something to do with like maybe the Midwest, or the normalcy of the Midwest, or?
Right. I mean, I was raised in a little meat packing town, where almost everybody kind of knew each other and had some connection with the packing house. There wasn't the idea of like of like ascending over that somehow or rising above any of it. It wasn't an idea that anybody really talked much about, or did anything about. That everything was it felt like everything was kind of lined up with getting you, to a place where you could maybe work at the packing house, which would have been a really good job. Or if you couldn't get that good job, you could maybe get some other job. But
Bob Dylan's definitely talked about that too.
Right. I mean, there's this weird feeling of like
no rebellion.
Right. You can't even really think about when I started playing the guitar, and I was young. I was like 8 years old, and I started trying to figure this stuff out. My dad had more of because my dad was a traveler. He was a different kind of guy, but my mother was really of that stock, and her ideas about if you learn how to play the guitar, you could maybe get good enough to play at like your sister's wedding,
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, but maybe not, but who cares? It's you're never going to be, you're never going to do anything more with it. And I think that's why I never bothered writing songs until my dad died. And then suddenly all of the kind of the grief and stuff had to come out somewhere. But I think, and then later on I worked as an outreach worker for an agency that helped people who were homeless. That kind of brought a whole new perspective into the idea that some people are like one way and some people are another way. I met people who were living outside and were the most spectacular, strong, generous, wise people that I've ever met in my life, and it kind of poked a bunch of holes in the idea that
there's only one way.
People are different. That there's only one way, or that people are in any way real different. I mean, people are made out of a fabric, and there's context, but there's not different fabrics.
Yeah. Well, my final question is, what is a life creating music, performing music, and seeing the world through your music taught you about what it means to be a human being?
You got the hardest questions. Don't you want to know what kind of tree I would be? It's funny because I think the lessons that I've learned from doing this for my life, and I haven't had a job in 15 years now, or overlap with the lessons that I learned from having the job that I had and from being a parent, which has a lot to do with the idea we talked about earlier of acceptance and embracing myself and having a lot of patience, because I'm learning that this is the most important moment that there ever was, and everything I've ever done has culminated with this very moment. And I think that this is a lesson that is the one that I really learned the best from doing this kind of thing for my living.